you don't want to really mask cramps the day of the show because, yeah, you'll be able to pose better, but you're also the cramp is indicating something. It's indicating that you have an electrolyte depletion in your body. And if you have a lack of sodium in your body and or potassium, your muscles will not look as good. So the idea that you're cramping indicates it's not coming from the clen most of the time. It's coming from the fact that, you've taken a diuretic, you haven't really had a lot to drink, and you're probably most likely, especially if you're using only Diazide, you're sodium deficient, in which case you just got to salt your foods a little bit and you balance your electrolytes. And that's a smart thing. So no, I don't like using tonic water, diatonic water the day of the show. Plus, you're not really drinking that much the day of the show. I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
RX Television. RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding, diet, training, supplementation, obviously the contest season in full swing. Whatever's on your mind, it is all on the table. We go to the questions, the first two questions on the show from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Dave, none of the media outlets want to talk about the lack of heavy compound movements all the top pros do in their routines: barbell row, one-arm dumbbell row, incline bench, barbell, military press, barbell squats, etc., etc. The physiques are he says nobody talks about it. This is literally what you're talking about last week, I think, on video and after hours, rather. The physiques are nowhere like the physiques in the late 90s and early 2000s. The lack of doing compound movements. Do you think this is a main factor for today's top pros, why they don't have the quality of muscle as the guys? I mean, you literally just railed on this in the Big Ramy rant last week.
I don't want to even say that it's not everyone. There are some guys out there that are training. I mean, look at Nick Walker. I mean, there are guys that are training balls to the wall and have some seriously hardcore muscle. Hadi Shupin, Derek Lunsford. These guys have massive amounts of muscle in their body, and they're training hard and they are using free weights. But there's a select group of people, and it's because today's world is great because it's more convenient. But for bodybuilding purposes, sometimes more convenient is not necessarily going to give you the best results. So yeah, you might use a machine that was not around 20 years ago that might target a muscle, and when you squeeze row that weight back, you feel it like you've never felt it in the middle of your back and in areas where you couldn't possibly target with a free weight. That's great, but that's not that should not be your primary movement. You still have to do your deadlifts and your barbell and your dumbbell rows with free weights. And then you end the exercise, or you do at the end of your workout, you do these machines that are isolating, targeting type thing. So I think some people got into that whole. It happened to me at one point too, because I thought, I was going to make my waist smaller if I use machines, and I didn't use free weights where I'm stabilizing as much with my waist. But it changed my physique, and I had to go back to doing the free weight movements because I just didn't have the same look. So I think it's a mistake. And once again, I don't blame it necessarily on the bodybuilder as much as I blame it on just the fact that the gyms are just very well equipped nowadays, and then they have great stuff. And it's you want to do every machine because the machines all feel amazing. The problem is, I think people don't realize that you're getting a more complete development with the free weights, and so everything's always compromised. It's not one or the other. If I had to pick one or the other, it would of course be free weights, but you can use both. just don't replace the important stuff with all machines, because what happens is little by little your physique starts to change and you don't even realize it. That's the best advice, without insulting anyone, because I don't think anyone's maliciously doing it. I think it's just they don't even realize what's happening, some people.
Second question, again from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Would a person sip on tonic water the day of the show if using clen? Electrolytes are fine, but the cramps when posing at night suck. I assume the day off might be the same, even though the clen will be reduced the last few days, as you said in the past.
Yeah, I usually knock down the clen a little bit because it can cause some cramping, and sometimes it can inhibit carving up, because it can increase glucagon production, which does the opposite of insulin. So for that reason, we do that. But, you don't want to really mask cramps the day of the show, because, yeah, you'll be able to pose better, but you're also, the cramp is indicating something. It's indicating that you have an electrolyte depletion in your body. And if you have a lack of sodium in your body and or potassium, your muscles will not look as good. So the idea that you're cramping indicates it's not coming from the clen most of the time. It's coming from the fact that, you've taken a diuretic, you haven't really had a lot to drink, and you're probably most likely, especially if you're using only Diazide, you're sodium deficient, in which case you just got to salt your foods a little bit and you balance your electrolytes. And that's a smart thing. So no, I don't like using tonic water, diatonic water the day of the show. Plus, you're not really drinking that much the day of the show. I do like to use it, while you're on clen, throughout the diet, if you're getting cramps, especially at night, because that's probably not due to electrolytes. It's probably due to the clenbuterol, So it's good that we have a solution in quinine, which is what's in tonic water, and we know it inhibits cramping. It's bad because it can mask a problem. So the day of the show, that's when problems occur, not during regular training, because during regular training, ostensibly, you're eating enough salt in your diet. Now, these last two questions were fantastic. And I'm just going to say, I don't know what happened, but the last 2 weeks, we got a surge in people signing up for the Dave Palumbo Experience app. And I have to, usually around summertime, that happens a lot, because people really want to educate themselves. A lot of new people are getting into coaching now. They want to have the ability to have Dave Palumbo as their coach in their back pocket for $29 a month. You download from your Android or iTunes store the Dave Palumbo Experience app. You can ask me as many questions as you want. And the great thing is that it's a learning experience, because all the questions and all the answers are posted in an open forum in the app. Plus, all my writings and all my videos I've ever done, educationally speaking, are all in there. All my diets and everything are in there. We put up a workout every week. So a lot of people are taking advantage of this really, really great resource, something that I've always wanted to build. And thank God I have my partner who pushed me to do it, because every day that passes, it's a growing resource of more and more information we compile. Plus, I do a Q&A video every single week just for the app members, which is unique from Ask Dave. So if you guys like to learn, if you are coaches, if you want to just educate yourself, it's a great investment for only less than $30 a month.
We'll go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not already following us on Instagram, the handle is official_RxMuscle. If you're new to this channel, the YouTube channel, we welcome you. We ask that you subscribe below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our shows, segments, anything and everything that we have going up on this channel. A lot of good questions here. Let's get right to them. Jordan Gonzalez, love the name. Been using Testolyze for a good while now. Absolutely love the product and have seen great results, but I feel like the effects may have diminished a bit over time. Would it be beneficial to cycle Testolyze on and off to mitigate developing intolerance?
There's really no tolerance buildup to Testolyze. What it does is it just tweaks your enzyme levels in your body so that your natural testosterone level will be higher, your estrogen and DHT will be lower. And what happens, though, is once you start taking it and you see that your body feels that higher testosterone and the estrogen and DHT subside, you feel really good. But then you get used to it. And the best analogy I can give you, for those of you guys who have done cycles out there, when you first start a cycle, the first month or two, you feel like you can conquer the world. After a while, a couple months, you kind of get used to that heightened testosterone level, and it's not so great anymore. And it's still doing great things to your body, but what's happening is you don't feel it. And that's because your receptors don't want to be overstimulated in your body. So what happens is your body kind of down regulates that euphoric type feeling because it's not sustainable, and that's why people who chase drug highs, guys who take heroin the first time, it feels like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And then they're forever chasing that first high because the body down regulates itself. So it's not responding so strongly. So people take more and more drug thinking they're going to get a better effect. So now you don't need to cycle that at all. Funny story about testolyze. There's a girl at the gym, and I've been, going there for, a couple of years now. And she has like bad acne, and I don't like to I don't like to be intrusive unless people ask me questions. And I always wanted to tell her, hey, you should try taking testolyze. And I overheard her talking to someone saying, yeah, I've tried Accutane, it doesn't really work, and I don't like the way I feel on it. And the doctor gave me some antibiotics or something like that for my acne. And I'm like, and there was my in, right? I was like, well, I don't need to intrude, but you are speaking out loud. And I said, I have a product that I said will really, works really well for acne, especially in women, because a lot of women have acne because they have high DHT levels. And I've given it to 15-year-old girls that have gotten rid of their acne. This girl is in her early 20s. And I brought her a bottle. And so she just started using it. She already says she feels the difference. So, DHT, testosterone, estrogen, those three hormones are all intricately linked together. And it's the balance of those three that are the most important. And that's why a lot of these testosterone boosters out there are kind of bullshit, because they're just putting in every ingredient they know that could potentially boost testosterone, but they're not addressing the real problem, which is your body produces testosterone, and then some of it converts to estrogen and some converts to DHT. And in some people's bodies, people convert too much to one or the other thing. I'm a very high DHT converter. I'm not a big estrogen converter. So for me, I have to watch DHT levels. In other people, they're huge estrogen, and those people know it. They got gynecomastia. They get bloated very easily. So you have to be aware of this triad of hormones and how to influence them so that they're tweaked according to, as bodybuilders, how we want it. High testosterone, low but not too low DHT, low estrogen but not too low, where it's going to affect sex drive. And that's what testolyze does. So, and it does it very well.
Let's go to Dwayne B. I take 5 to 6 grams creatine every morning. If I take a pre-workout that has 5 grams of creatine in it, should I not take my morning dose, or will my body absorb what it needs and get rid of the excess?
Yeah, I was never like a big creatine loader. I don't think you need. I think once you start taking too much, you just get kind of diarrhea from it. If you're taking a pre-workout that has 5 grams, which I'm surprised because I haven't seen any pre-workouts that have that much in it. Usually people don't put any. We don't. I don't have any creatine because a lot of people don't like it. They don't want to take it. Girls feel bloated on it. But if you're taking a pre-workout that has 5 grams already, I wouldn't take the morning dose. No, I don't think you need it. Now, on days you don't take the pre-workout, you might want to use, do your 5 gram dose in the morning. So this way, every day you get 5 grams. But I wouldn't do a double dose now.
Nico Cantemir, your protocol when, I guess, during your competition career, just how you coach, when you compete 2 or 3 weeks after your first competition.
Yeah, people get freaked out about having to compete. I always liked competing the following weekend, right after, weekend, right in a row, because you kind of just, Sunday becomes leg day, back on the diet, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, you carb up again and repeat everything. So I think it's pretty easy. I mean, if you're going to have a 2-week break, then it's even easier. I mean, Sunday, you don't have to do legs, right after your show, which always makes it easier because legs is tough when you're the day after a show, even though you probably ate some good cheat meal on Saturday night, you're still a little dehydrated. So, on a Sunday after a show where you still have 2 weeks, I would probably just do like a chest, body part, something that's not, that strenuous, and, maybe have a breakfast or something like that, and then get back on the diet and then deplete out again, get back on your normal contest diet. And if you have to lose more weight, obviously hit it hard. If you're good and you're actually peaked already, then you probably can have, I usually feed my guys a little more. So I might give them Sunday to eat whatever they want, also back on the diet Monday. And then depending on how they look, I'm going to keep adding more food. A lot of guys have to throw a burger and fries in every couple of days just to keep them from over depleting too much, where they're going to lose muscle or look worse. If they're not, if the person competed on the Saturday and they didn't look their best and I know they can be leaner, then I'm going to put them right back on the diet. I'm going to push them hard for the next, week or two to get them even leaner. So it really depends. The strategy depends on how the person looked at the show. Were they ready or were they a little off? And that dictates what you do.
In my home sweet gym, how low carb should one be when prepping for a show? Obviously, it gradually drops, but the lowest you suggest your clients per pound of body weight?
0. I mean, I've gone 0. I go 0 carbs with a lot of people. I put them on my ketogenic diet. You shouldn't just go 0 carbs and just eat protein. That's not smart. But if you're doing it, if you're doing like a ketogenic approach like I have, which is high protein, moderate fat, the fat becomes the fuel source. And then, you can go up to 0 carbs. And a lot of people like that because when they do that, their brain switches into ketosis, meaning the brain is using fat as a fuel source rather than carbs. And a lot of people feel better on that. Now, but if you don't need to lose that much weight and you are losing weight, however, eating carbs and fat and protein, then that's the best of both worlds. So how low we go on carbs really depends on the person's metabolism. I usually start guys out on some days with carbs and protein, and then some days with just fat and protein. And I switch it around. Usually we skew it in favor of the carb day. So they might have 3 days with carbs and then 1 day with no carbs. And then as the diet progresses and depending on how their body is responding and how their body fat levels are dropping, I might change those days around. Toward the end of the diet, they might be doing 3 days of just protein and fat and 1 day of carbs. And at some point, I might pull all the carbs out just because I need to really, really lean them out. In other people, if I put them on a ketogenic diet, for some reason, they don't lose weight. Some people, if you feed them fat, it's like their body's just, it's not that they're gaining muscle, they're gaining weight, but their bodies won't lose weight. So some people, I have to go like low carb. So I might do protein, with some carbs, but low, 50 to 75 grams a day, and then no fat or low fat, except for the essential fats that I would give them in a supplement form. And that works. So there's really no specific, this always works, because every time I say this always works, I find a case where it doesn't always work. And so you have to be flexible enough to know who you're working with and how their body is responding. And don't just keep doing the same thing over and over if you're not getting any results from it.
So the same user actually had a similar question, a follow-up question. This is more so, how does one know if they're already in shape for a contest? I guess, what are the key indicators? They asked specifically, is it single-digit body fat or what? Another question, best time. I mean, it's kind of a loaded question. I'm trying to see.
The mirror is the best way. I mean, or a photograph or your best friend who you trust. Am I in shape? Yeah, you're in shape. Or your coach. If I tell someone they're in shape, they're in shape, and it's based on how they look. I don't care what I have guys and girls who give me these statistical readouts. I mean, they give me reports that look like they went for medical diagnostic testing. There's body fat analysis and measurements and PET scans. And I'm like, at the end of the day, all that's great, all that data, but it really doesn't mean a hill of beans if you look like shit, So, you have to go and take a look and see how you look. If the person looks amazing, I don't care. Look, I've had guys say, I got my body fat read, I'm 24%. I said, you have striated glutes, you're not 24%. Those tests they're not accurate, some of them, because they base it on weight and height and stuff like that. So the only thing that matters is how you look. And that's really the best answer to this question.
I mean, they also, it's a very loaded question. They also asked questions along the lines of when to cut protein powder before a show.
Day before, I usually cut it out.
Okay. When to cut essential fats pre-show?
Never. I mean, I don't give people vitamins and essential fats the day of the show because they're not drinking anything. But I go right to the day before the show with all that stuff.
Your go-to carb up meal hours before the show?
I like if the person's crazy lean, I like to give them pancakes and eggs in the morning. If they're not crazy nutty lean, then I'll give them eggs and like grits or eggs and cream of rice. And then I'll probably go to chicken and rice after that.
Let's go to RJMCC. How long after the last shot do you wait until starting PCT, testipionate?
I mean, you can really start it right away. Usually it's just for standardization. I usually tell people 1 week. 1 week after the last shot, start your PCT.
Zakit, I can't pronounce it. I'm going hypo at times in prep. Is that to be expected, or do you still eat frequently enough for that not to happen? Any crazy hypo stories from you personally?
Some people go hypo because they're eating really low carbs. So in other words, imagine you're eating like, 40 grams of protein per meal, and then you're eating like, 20 grams of carbs, which you might have to do to get in shape, right? And it might be working. The problem is, 45 minutes, an hour after the meal's over, there's nothing left. Your body has already absorbed everything, and your blood sugar is really low because you really didn't eat that many carbs. So while you ate the meal, you felt great. And then afterwards, you're going low because your brain is saying, give me more carbs, because it's using carbohydrates. That's why when people hit a certain point and their carbs are so low, a lot of times you're better off just pulling out the carbs and just going to a ketogenic approach where they're going to, at least their brain will have a fuel source in fats rather than running out. Because if you're in ketosis, you don't go hypo. The only time you go hypo in ketosis is if you're doing like high intensity cardio for a very long period of time, which you shouldn't be. Okay. If you're on a ketogenic diet, you shouldn't be doing long bouts of high intensity cardio, which you shouldn't be doing anyway if you're dieting for a show. You don't want to lose muscle. But some people do that and they go hypo because they use up all the carbs in their body. And it's the carbs that you're eating should be used for weight training. When you're doing cardio, you shouldn't want to use carbs as a fuel source. You should want to use fat as a fuel source. That's why you don't want to go once the intensity level gets too high in cardio, you stop using fat and you start using carbs. Now, you're still burning calories, you're still burning energy in the body, but you're burning the wrong energy, and that's something that a lot of people make as a mistake. They think, well, the faster I go in cardio, the better off I'm going to be because I'm going to burn more calories. But they're really burning the wrong calories. If you're better off doing a little bit of longer duration cardio, but lower intensity, like steady state cardio, so that you're burning exclusively fat. And I can say that from till now till I'm blue in the face. And some people will listen, some people won't, and that's just the way it is. It's a certifiable fact that if you're doing lower intensity, I'm not talking about where you're crawling. I'm talking about good rate cardio, but not too high where now your body has to switch its fuel source. You got to find that fine tune. I usually tell people it's about 3.2 to 3.8 miles per hour walking on a treadmill. That's about the right zone you want to be in. It's hard to tell you heart rate because some people take so many stimulants that their heart rate is 130 beats a minute before they even start exercising. So heart rate is not really a good indicator. It's pace and how you're moving.
Let's go to Myron Ullman has a question about Trevor Smith. If you have any Trevor Smith stories. Trevor Smith passed away in 2004?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Like in the early 30s as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously kind of like a cult legend in his own right. But yeah, if you have any Trevor Smith stories.
Yeah. It's funny. I don't know why, but for some reason I was just thinking about him the other day. And he just popped into my head yesterday. And that's weird that you were asking a question because I don't think anyone's even mentioned his name. I've heard his name mentioned in a couple of years. But he was married to Nancy Norman, who's now married to Ron Norman. So I got most of my stories from Nancy because I didn't know Trevor personally, other than shook his hand a few times at a show and had a few words with him. We chatted a little bit. We weren't like regularly corresponding with each other. But Trevor was, from what Nancy told me and from what other people told me who knew him, he was like obsessed, loved bodybuilding. He was tall and he felt that he needed to be 400 pounds before he would diet down and do a show. And he did get the 400 pounds. And for quite a while he was 400 pounds. He was a big dude. And he loved training. And probably his greatest accomplishment was his nuclear nutrition that they had, that supplement company that him and Nancy ran. And people loved the products. I used the products. They were really, really good because they were like, it was kind of like Species. It was like a high end, high quality supplement line. But at the time, there really wasn't that many lines of products out there. So you weren't competing against 45 different companies. And so he did well. They were doing well with it. I think it's a shame that he had stopped doing that. But I think Nancy was running the company. And then when they got divorced, I think that kind of ended that company. But he was hardcore. He was really into his training. He was into training really heavy too. And it's a shame we lost him so young because he had a lot to contribute. I think he would have been a really good educator, in today's world. He would have been like a John Meadows type of guy, that I think a lot of people would have respected and asked information for, because he was a teacher, by trade originally. And so he had a good way of explaining things to people, kind of like I do, in a way that people could understand what was going on. So yeah, it's a shame we lost him, and life throws you curveballs and you never know where you're going to wind up. So unfortunately, he's not with us anymore.
Let's go to NY Bigger. And I'm glad to ask this question because you've done a couple of videos on this topic now, Ozempic, Semaglutide. Could you see, I guess, that application being used in bodybuilding? It seems to me that it would go against muscle building principles. It slows down digestion, so you won't want to eat as much, thus not being able to consume enough protein for muscle mass. Am I missing something here?
What was the question, though?
No, so the question was about like Ozempic, right? And its applications in bodybuilding.
Yeah. No. What Ozempic does is it's a GLP-1 agonist, meaning that it mimics glucagon-like peptide 1 in the body, which is released when you eat food. So when you eat a meal, GLP-1 is released, and it basically tells your brain, don't be hungry anymore. It's kind of like leptin in that sense. It also slows motility of the intestinal tract so that you can absorb your food and makes you feel full. So when you take Ozempic, you're really essentially taking GLP-1, or you're taking a compound that stimulates the GLP-1 receptor. So it doesn't take away your appetite. What it does is it just makes you feel full longer. So you still feel hungry to eat your meals, but in between your meals, you're not going to feel hungry. And a lot of people fail on their diets because they snack in between. So they have their meal, and then 20 minutes later, they're picking raisins up, they're eating nuts, and that's why a lot of people don't lose weight. It's not that they don't eat the food; they're just eating extra food. What people find that when they're on the Ozempic is they're just not hungry, in the sense that when they're dieting, they're starved all the time. They feel like content. And I think that for a lot of people is good. Now, if you took a person like me and put me on Ozempic when I was competing, it probably wouldn't have helped me because I was already like a lunatic. I would never cheat on my diet. It didn't matter how hungry I was. I would never eat an extra morsel of food. So it wouldn't have changed how I looked. It might have made me feel less hungry, but it wouldn't have changed anything. So it's really a personality-driven type drug. And I know a lot of people, and I have a lot of my female clients and a few male clients on it because I know that that's their personality. Their issue is that they cheat on their diet. And it's not that they cheat purposely. They just pick extra food. And for them, they're getting great results on it because they're not feeling the need to eat in between meals. They feel content. And in that sense, I think it's a great drug. But I think what happens is you see some of these people like in Hollywood who take it. And what it does is because it doesn't, takes away your hunger a little bit, they don't eat all day. They use it as a crutch to not eat. And they lose weight, but they lose muscle and they lose fat. And so they get that like skinny gaunt look. You don't see that from bodybuilders who use it because bodybuilders, they don't miss meals. They eat their food, they eat their meals. So everything they're losing is body fat. But if you're not eating and you're going to lose everything, and so there's two populations of people who seem to be using it. It's the people who want to be skinny, and then there's the people who are physique athletes who want to use it because they know it's going to help them get through their diet more easily. And it also actually happens to lower blood sugar too. So if you have blood sugar issues, it can fix that as well. So it's a good drug, but it's not going to solve a problem that you might have of structure. So I have some people who just eat twice a day, and they're like, I don't understand why I don't lose weight. Well, because your metabolism is crap. You can't do that. You're not going to have a good look on Ozempic if you do that. So I think it can be used, but it has to be used under supervision of a coach so that at least we know that you're not missing meals and stuff like that.
Take two more questions. This one from Raikau Sluzak. Sorry if I butchered the name. Supplement Vitex, is it good for men and can be incorporated to up the libido and lower prolactin levels in the body? If yes, what dosages would you recommend?
I don't even know what Vitex is. Do you know what it is?
I looked it up. It was like an herb. Let me see here.
What's the actual ingredient?
Vitex, right? So it's called a chast tree herbal product that can affect hormone levels. Some research shows that it can improve symptoms, PMS.
You see, if I haven't heard of it, it doesn't mean it doesn't work, but it probably doesn't work. What? First of all, Vitex is not the actual ingredient. Vitex is the name of the fat burner or whatever they're calling themselves. And then there's ingredients that are in there which are probably herbal in nature. Now, more than likely, I don't know what's in there. And when I don't know something, I tell you guys. And like I said, I don't look at these questions. I don't see any of these questions before I do the show. So Sid's just throwing them at me, wild, and I'm answering them. Never heard of it. Does it work? I don't know. So I don't want to give a negative or positive review because I've never used it. So
we'll take one more. It's from Espenberg. Recently diagnosed with ulcers, colitis. I'm using remicade and methotrexate from the doctor, apple cider vinegar, glutamine, boswellia supplements for gut health. Wondering if someone like myself, people with IBD, can use Fiberlyze, and if so, how much?
Yeah, some people with irritable bowel can use Hey, Jay, get out of there. Some people with irritable bowel can use a fiber product, and it's warranted. Usually during flare-ups, however, where they're having a lot of mucousy diarrhea and bloody diarrhea, you wouldn't use it then because that's going to make them go more. But once they get everything under control, in other words, once you're controlled and you're not acutely inflamed down there, you can successfully use a fiber supplement. And a lot of times it's recommended, but don't use it during flare-ups. A lot of my wife sometimes gets like some irritable bowel, and she has noticed that, and she tells a lot of people to take this. I don't want to take credit for this one. This one's hers. This boswellia complex, which is made by Standard Process. You can get it on Amazon.com. Usually it's sold through like chiropractors and stuff like that, but Amazon sells it at a pretty reasonable rate. It's more expensive than any other boswellia you'll see, but the other boswellia doesn't work as good as this. I don't know if it's it's probably a more pure, extract. And this stuff works like crazy. You take 2 pills 2 to 3 times a day when you have flare-ups, and man, most people who take it, it solves their problem, So give it a shot. Sometimes, like if I'm sick and my bowel is bothering me, and I'll take it, and I feel better on the stuff. So I would definitely give that a try. I know he mentioned that he was using boswellia, but it's probably not the Standard Process one. So check that out on Amazon.com. It really does work well.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Right now on the channel, all new episodes of After Hours. Yesterday, a really compelling episode, a really cool, sort of a different type of episode, talking about some of the hardcore gyms in New Jersey and some of the rivalries that took place. It was really, really entertaining stuff. Very fun. Who's the guest again? George Majorano.
George Majorano and
yeah.
Carlo.
Yeah, and Carlo, of course. But very, very entertaining, very compelling. Kind of a different type of show of After Hours, but highly entertaining and really, really worth the watch. So that's on the channel. And of course, Heavy Muscle Radio, Dave and Chris, their recap of the Toronto Pro with Ian Valliere winning the show and punching his ticket to the Olympia. And then, of course, tomorrow, all new episode of Iron Rage with Lee Priest. And then, of course, I'm not sure which day we're going to have it up, but we're going to have part 3. Jimmy the Bull has really been kind of opening himself up. For those who have not watched our new show, Iron Therapy, and I say new, it's been about 5-6 months old, but still very much in its infancy. It's a show that we dedicated towards the mental health side of bodybuilding, for bodybuilders, and so what we'll do here and there is we'll have guests on and kind of have them open up a little bit, talk about what's on their mind, what's been bothering them, and maybe just discuss enough so that Leslie Timble can give an accurate, assessment, perhaps, of what they're going through. So it's been really, it's amazing the range of emotions from Jimmy. It's range from anger to sadness to humor, but it's been such a variety pack. And I mean, you see it in the comment section, but it's been again compelling stuff. And of course, Leslie just breaking everything down that Jimmy's going through. We're going to have a part 3 of that of Jimmy really opening himself up on that show. I'm not sure which day that's going to drop, probably Friday or Saturday. But again, that on the channel. You wanted to add something to that?
The kids are, there's a rebellion here, I think.
Okay.
Shayla had to send me, give her pictures. I'll say one thing. The reason why Jimmy has some stories that are hysterical, but they're, a lot of them are heart-wrenching, but
they're real. They're real. Yeah.
What he has the ability to tell the story in such a way that they're, you actually, you could feel bad for him, but you could laugh with him at the same time. Yeah. And so I think a lot of people enjoy the stories because they do hit home, because Jimmy's not the only one who goes through this stuff with ex-wives and kids and losing parents or anything like that. But the process of the way he does it is so funny that it makes it very watchable. It's not depressing to watch the show. And I think people, at least what people who've contacted me, said that they really have, they feel good after they watch the show because it's kind of like it's therapeutic for them. Guys, we have a rebellion here at the office. Please be quiet. So Jimmy's going to do one more part. I think Jimmy would like to do 10 more parts. I think we'll do one more part with Jimmy. The finale. Yes. All right. No sticking the middle finger up, Logan. Jimmy's going to do one more part. And then who did you say was going to come on the show?
Mac Truck, who, recently, if you follow him on Instagram, kind of really opened up himself. So we reached out and he said he would love to be on the show. So we're going to get Matt Truck on an upcoming episode.
Looking forward to that. Yeah, that's going to be a good one.
So, all right, that's going to do it. Again, if you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below. As always, we appreciate your support. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.